Hello, Forecaster here again, and we are back for episode 97. And this is going to be another voiceover recorded in post-production because of recording issues. So, I also lost the footage of what would have been episode 97, so this got bumped down to 97 instead. It was originally episode 98 actually. So in the what used to be episode 97, I did some fishing and I made this fish feeder. And I tried to put it in the workshop, as you saw, and put fish in it, and it was complaining about not enough water, too small tank. And yeah, turns out after reading the book that you're supposed to put it in the water, like I did right here. However, as you probably also noticed, I'm having an issue where when I try to open the interface, I also drink from the water, which is dirty, as we are in a jungle biome. So I risk getting poisoned every time I do that. Now I figured out that when I'm underneath the surface, I do not drink from the water blocks. However, instead, I have to worry about suffocating, basically, or drowning, rather. But yeah. So the fish feeder essentially allows you to breed fish, similarly to how breeding bees work in forestry, but not quite. For example, of course, you need water around the fish feeder. You need to provide fish food, which I will make later. And the actual breeding doesn't work quite the same way. You don't... The male and the female, in this case, or in every case actually, you need a male and a female fish, as I have right here. Here I'm trying to figure out how to get the fish food into the fish feeder. But you need a male and a female fish, but they do not combine like they do with the bees in forestry, and I die from drowning like I knew I would, because I did this yesterday. Yesterday for me. But they remain their own separate items. Instead, they live out their lives as separate entities, and they produce certain products over time. And when their lifespan is over, they will produce a set of eggs that you can hatch using a hatchery. There's a hatchery and another simpler block that I don't remember the name of. And you can get more fish from that way, and they can also mutate into different species that are vastly different from their original species. And different fish, of course, produce different products. So I'm trying to figure this out. Clicking the fish feeder with the universal cell doesn't seem to work, nor does shift clicking, at least not while swimming. I can't do it from above the surface because I would drink the water and risk getting poisoned again. Here I have the idea that maybe the ladle will work, because that belongs to the same mod, mariculture, of course. That right there is the sifter, which I used in the last episode, You can, for example, sift dirt, which will produce worms and ant bait. And you need these to fish. So mariculture enhances the fishing system a bit. For example, it adds 3 new fishing rods: the reed rod, the polished wood rod, I don't remember its actual name, and the titanium fishing rod. And all of these, it also enhances the vanilla fishing rod, adds bait types to it. So the different rods can use different types of baits. For example, ant bait. You can use ant bait with the reed fishing rod. You can also use bread and grasshopper bait. And you need bait to be able to fish. And here I drank some water again and got poisoned as a result. And fortunately, I had some milk on me, which I was actually waiting for to rot so I could use it to make more slime balls. And it was almost done too, and I had to drink it. Ew, by the way. That was probably not very tasty. But so now I have to get a new bucket and start over with that, which was slightly annoying at the time. But yeah, so fishing requires bait. You cannot cast a line from a fishing rod without it, as I found out in the last episode, I should say. And when you can catch fish like normal, except it's slightly changed. When you cast a line, there's going to be some bubbles moving along the surface of the water, and when those sip over to where the floater is, and it goes down, that means the fish has caught the hook. And here I got poisoned again, and I didn't drink the water, so I wasn't sure why. But I later figured out, or I might have right now, I don't actually remember, that the stingrays will poison you if you go in the water nearby the fish feeder. And I do it again, and here's probably when I figure it out, because I definitely didn't drink the water that time. But yeah, so the fish can apply effects to you if you go in the water near the fish feeder, of course. Now, you don't see the stingrays anymore. You might have noticed they were being rendered around the fish feeder earlier. So I thought it might be safe, but not sure. So I decided to break the fish feeder to stop myself from getting poisoned. And I also discovered that the stingrays have actually produced some drops of poison, which is what stingrays produce, as it turns out. It's all they produce, actually. And they aren't very useful, as it turns out. You can use them to make a fish scanner, but you need some. I need a pearl for that. I think I showed the recipe later. But yeah, so I'm probably going to want to get some different types of fish that produce something that is more useful. So having the fish feeder in the pond out the back didn't really work out very well, now did it? So instead, I decided to build an indoor tank, which is what I'm doing right now. So I'm clearing some space, and the idea is that I can have the fish feeder in the wall, touching the water, of course, and that will allow me easy access to it, while the fish feeder would be surrounded by water, and thus would um, and hopefully will count as being being connected to enough water for the fish to work. So I'm putting the fish feeder down here where the front wall is going to be, and I'm going to make a 3 by 3 by 3 ish tank, I think. Once I've cleaned up some of this junk. Hopefully in the next episode I won't have any issues with Bandicam resetting settings for me, so hopefully we'll have a proper live commentary at the time. Here I decide, after placing down one block, that I wanted to have a glass wall in towards the base, of course, so you could see the fish. It should be nice, of course, because you'll want to watch your fish tank. Yeah. I spent some time actually building the tank. I think if I recall correctly, I built most of it, or fixed it up, after I had recorded this episode. Here I see what you can do with poison, which it turns out is not a whole lot. You could probably use it as a defense, because the fluid you place in the world, which is from Biomes of Plenty, poisons you, of course, if you step in it. So you can make a moat with poison in it, I suppose. Not particularly useful, though. So here we have me adding a glass wall. I will be changing that later, though. But my hope is that this will allow the fish feeder to work while still allowing me to access it easily. So, pondering how to fill the tank, I decide to use the floodgate from Railcraft, and I have one of those. It's by the oil reservoir, so I decide to borrow that. Which is going to turn out a little trickier than I was hoping at first. I don't remember what I was looking for. Yeah, a fluid hopper to get the water into the floodgate. So I borrow that one, put a glass block down to keep the heat in, and then I find the floodgate right there. And now grabbing it is going to be a little tricky, because if the oil flows into the block, I'm going to be stuck down there because I won't be able to jump, thanks to the oil tweak mod. So I don't get the floodgate, because my inventory is, of course, full. And now that the oil has flown into the block where I'm standing, I can't step up onto the neighboring block. And so I'm stuck there. I can't jump either. But I figure I can place a pipe where I'm standing, because I've observed that behavior before, which of course works. And then when I'm no longer standing in oil, I can just step up from the pit. So I simply put the floodgate in the wall, of course, and put the liquid hopper or fluid hopper next to it. Then I forget how much water. I think for a 3 by 3 by 3 hollow volume, you need 27 blocks to fill it. 3 times 9, that should be 27, I think. So yeah, I just fill up the tank with water using the floodgate. Takes a little bit for the fluid or liquid hopper to... No, fluid hoppers, correct? Should be. I believe it's misnamed because it can transport fluids and not just liquids, which is why I'm calling it the fluid hopper. But yeah, it fills the tank, and I will put the fish. Unfortunately, my neon tetras died at some point while I was experimenting in between this episode and the previous one, which is a shame because I would rather have used those than the stingrays. I forget exactly what they produce, but I believe it was more useful than poison. So yeah, filling the tank with water. Kind of a boring job, but has to be done, I guess. Or fish aren't going to like living there. I fill it up to the max. I think between or after this, I emptied the tank of water and made it look better. Replaced the walls properly with marble bricks. Replaced the glass wall with something that works and looks a little better, I think. Still don't have new fish for it. And here's how you make fish food. So you put bait you got from sifting into the crucible furnace, and it's simply smelted down into fish food. And you get one millibucket, or one piece of fish food per piece of bait. Now I'm using worm bait. I'm smelting down worm bait primarily because I cannot use that with the reed fishing rod. You need the one above it, whatever it was called, the polished wood one, to use the worm bait. I can use the ant bait, however, with the reed fishing rod, so I'm avoiding, or I'm saving that for as long as possible. I do end up smelting some of it down later anyway, because I have a lot of it. And here again, I'm trying to get fish food into the fish feeder, and it turns out that the universal fluid cell from IC2 doesn't want to work at all, regardless. So I end up having to use the ladle again, of course, which works fine. It's fine as well. So when the fish feeder runs out of food, the fish will simply stop working. They will stop aging as well. Funnily enough, they do not starve to death or anything. They just stop working. It's as if you were to remove all the flowers from around an apiary, sort of. So they will stop working until you put in more food, and then they will keep going. And of course, fish food is not expensive. It's just dirt, basically. You just sift dirt to get fish food, and then or to get bait, and then you smelt that down into fish food. Which I'm not sure how that works. Smelting worms, turning them into liquid food, but whatever. It's fine. It's just Minecraft logic. So yeah, I'm feeding the stingrays right now, though looking back, I probably shouldn't have wasted all of that food on them, since all they produce is poison. So, yeah. Here you can check the products in NEI, and I check here, and all they produce is poison, while other fish produce more useful things, like leather, or slime balls, or, well, water, funnily enough. There's the fish scanner, which requires any drop, or 6 of any drop, and a pearl and some other stuff. I believe it also fish, something else. There's a nether or blaze fish that produces blaze rods, just a 5% chance, but still. Of course, there's an ender fish that produces ender pearls. There's a bunch of other fish. Not sure which ones you can actually get by fishing, and which you have to breed, but sure, I'll find out in the future, perhaps. Yeah. In the last episode, I like I said, I did some fishing. I placed down the sifter, which I actually made ages and ages ago in a previous episode. And I actually crafted my first reed rod, but I already had one that a zombie dropped from mariculture. Mariculture used to spawn zombies wielding fishing rods and wearing bucket hats. But I disabled those because they tended to have buffs on them, which made them extremely annoying when it was lagging. And there always seemed to be a lag spike when one of them was charging, and I died to them a lot, which was pretty annoying. So I turned them off, but not before one of them dropped a almost broken reed rod. So I was going to use that to make the fishing book from mariculture, which explains how fishing and fish breeding works. But it turned out you couldn't use you had to use an unbroken or an unused fishing rod to make the book. So I made a new reed fishing rod with the intention of crafting the book with it. And it turned out that when you craft your first rod, you actually get the book for free, which is a slightly pleasant surprise. Here I show. Oh yeah, the reason I got the idea of getting into fishing to start with was because I got. I don't remember how exactly, but I got a few squids, and I made some food out of them. I made fish tacos, and they turned out to be very good. So I wanted to explore what more foods I could make using fish, and also to vary my options a little bit, or give me more food options. Now I did discover that you can't cook any of the fish from mariculture for some reason. So what I intend to do, when I remember, is add a furnace recipe for all of the fish. Conveniently, they have an OR dictionary entry that is the same for all of them, simply titled fish, which I can probably use. So I'm going to make them all cook into vanilla cooked fish, which is going to allow me to cook them and use them better for, well, cooking. It's going to be nice. So here's how sifting works, basically. You just right-click a block on the sifter, and it's immediately sifted. And you have a chance to generate bait when doing so. Dirt seems to only give ant and worm bait, which makes sense, I think. I don't remember what other blocks you can sift. I think grass and leaves, which have a chance of generating other kinds of baits. The book might might say which sort of bait comes from which types of blocks and such, but I haven't read it thoroughly yet. Maybe I should do that. But yeah, so more fish food. I got a lot of ant bait this time, so decide to smelt some of it as well to produce some more fish food, of course. Yeah. So this might be interesting. I'm going to keep poking with this probably in future episodes. Also, probably between episodes. I also want to get back on track with the railway, of course, which I've been putting off. I have been harvesting. I don't remember if I talked about this in the last episode or not. I might have. But I've been harvesting yellow dye, and I'm going to make those signals so we can get going with the railway again. I think I talked about this and mentioned this in the last episode as well. But whatever. In case you missed that for some reason. But I'm not sure what will happen in the next episode. But hopefully it will be interesting. And hopefully you found this interesting. Maybe you found it super boring because, well, it's fishing, fish breeding stuff. It is kind of a new aspect of mariculture, however, so maybe you found it interesting anyway. Who knows? Probably going to do something else in the next episode. So, yeah. Here I talk about how I would like to be able to turn that power converter off, or power adapter. I decide to make another basic gate to try to put that on the same pipe as the converter, see if there are actions to turn it off. Otherwise, I can probably just turn off the pipe itself, close it to stop power from reaching the the converter or adapter, which would turn it off effectively. I might also want to do that when there's no fluid in the crucible furnace. But now we've reached the end of this episode, so I will see you in the next one.